Imagine a place where reaching the shore means spending 6, maybe even 10 long days drifting across the endless sea. No airports, no deep water ports. A world completely cut off from civilization. So, are you ready to discover it? Welcome to Tristan da Cunha, the most isolated inhabited island on Earth, where the line between survival and being forgotten is thinner than a thread. Nearly 1,700 miles from the nearest mainland in Africa, Tristan da Cunha rises from the Atlantic Ocean, a remote island forged by a massive volcano buried deep beneath the sea. Its landscape is brutally unforgiving. Towering cliffs surround the island, leaving only a narrow strip of land on the northwest coast where people can make their homes. Here, relentless westerly winds lash across the island, bending trees sideways as they struggle to survive. Yet beneath this harsh environment lies an ecosystem threatened by the severe encroachment of the Norway rat, a species that preys on vulnerable albatross chicks. For more than 2 centuries, a population of just over 200 has descended from only 8 founding family lines. Generations of isolation and intermarriage have created an extraordinarily narrow gene pool, turning the island into something of a natural genetic laboratory. Chronic asthma and hereditary congenital defects became a sentence that haunted them from the moment they were born. In 1885, a devastating maritime tragedy claimed the lives of nearly all the island's adult men, plunging the entire community into decades of poverty, grief, and despair. And because of the island's extreme isolation, every medical emergency can become a gamble with death. When disaster strikes, rescue ships may take weeks to reach them. In 1961, a volcanic eruption forced the entire population to evacuate to the modern world. But even after experiencing life beyond the island, they keep coming back to rebuild from the ashes. After all, in the heart of every islander, this place is truly their home. The moment you set foot on the most isolated island on Earth, you'll realize something. Every fragile trace of human life here exists beneath the shadow of a mighty giant. That giant is Queen Mary's Peak, an active volcano and the ultimate symbol of Tristan da Cunha's spirit. Towering over nearly the entire island, Queen Mary's Peak rises 2,062 meters above sea level, making it the highest point in the entire South Atlantic. At its summit lies a perfectly rounded volcanic crater, cradling a small lake that remains calm throughout the year. The locals have given it an affectionate name, the Heart of the Island. In winter, snow blankets the summit, softening the dark basalt rocks beneath it. The result is a breathtaking contrast, but behind the peaceful beauty of this heart lies a force of destruction that never truly sleeps. To the people of Tristan da Cunha, Queen Mary's Peak is both guardian and warning. A guardian that shields them from raging storms, provides them with fresh water, and has gifted them fertile soil from the ashes of its ancient eruptions. But at the same time, it stands as a constant reminder that danger is never truly asleep. After conquering the summit of Queen Mary's Peak and taking in the breathtaking view of this volcanic island rising from the South Atlantic, you'll notice something far below, a tiny strip of coastal plain nestled at the foot of the mountain. This is Edinburgh of the Seven Seas, the only village on Tristan da Cunha, and what is often considered the most remote settlement on Earth. Nearly 1,700 miles from the nearest mainland in South Africa, the island has no airport. Its connection to the outside world depends entirely on just a handful of supply ships sailing from Cape Town each year. And when the weather allows, the journey can take nearly a week. Only around 240 to 250 people call this place home. They live together in a village covering less than a quarter of a square kilometer, where almost everyone knows everyone else, and where a close-knit way of life has been passed down through generations. The land is managed communally. Life here revolves around Tristan Rock lobster fishing, livestock farming, potato cultivation, and a small but growing trickle of tourism. And so, Edinburgh of the Seven Seas is more than just the most remote village on Earth. It is a living symbol of human resilience, a place where people have chosen to build a life, no matter how far the rest of the world may be. From the quiet homes of the most remote village on Earth, every road, no matter how winding, eventually leads to one single meeting point at the water's edge. That is Calshot Harbour, the one and only harbor of Tristan da Cunha, and the very lifeline connecting this isolated community to the rest of the world. It may be called a harbor, but there are no massive piers or modern cranes here. It is so small and rudimentary that large ocean-going vessels can never dock. Whenever a supply ship arrives from the mainland, Calshot Harbor becomes a true battleground between humanity and the raging sea. The islanders must use small boats to ferry every sack of essential supplies, every fuel drum, and every piece of medical equipment from offshore to the shore. At Calshot Harbor, time isn't measured by the hands of a clock. It is dictated by the mood of the ocean. When the sea turns rough, the harbor is completely swallowed by crashing waves, and all trade and transport come to a standstill. But when the rhythmic pounding of an old oil drum echoes throughout the village, signaling calm seas, the harbor instantly comes alive. The men of the village gather here, preparing their fishing gear for expeditions to hunt Tristan rock lobster. This harbor is where the sweat of hard work is witnessed, where joy fills the air when boats return loaded with lobster, and where tears are shed by those left waiting when the island is cut off from the mainland for months at a time. Not far from there, the islanders have another formidable fortress of survival on solid ground. This is the Patches, a one-of-a-kind agricultural settlement standing alone in the middle of the South Atlantic, where people have learned to tame volcanic rocks and stones to feed themselves. Built up over generations, the Patches is a remarkably ingenious and resilient farming system. Because the island is battered year-round by fierce winds carrying salt from the sea, winds capable of destroying every fragile seedling, the islanders gathered thousands upon thousands of black basalt stones and built rough walls around each small plot of land. From a distance, these plots look like little patches clinging tightly to the volcanic earth. The only crop that can truly withstand these conditions and thrive here is the potato, the staple food at the heart of the entire community. At the Patches, there are no boundaries between selfishness and private ownership. While each family tends to its own individual plot, the land itself is, in essence, a shared possession belonging to the entire island. When harvest season arrives, this farmland transforms into the finest symbol of communal labor and mutual support. One person digs the earth, another carries the sacks, another loads and unloads them, and no one asks for a wage. Every potato buried beneath the dark soil of the Patches is more than a source of nourishment. It is a powerful declaration of self-reliance, a final safety net that allows more than 200 people to endure the harsh winter months. when ships from the mainland are completely powerless against the unforgiving open sea. Following the currents of the Atlantic Ocean takes us to a territory belonging to Tristan da Cunha, but one that feels like an entirely different world. This is Gough Island, a remote, untamed wilderness. Celebrated as one of the world's greatest seabird sanctuaries and recognized by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site. With no permanent human settlement, Gough Island is one of the most pristine and untouched island ecosystems remaining on Earth. It is home to more than 10 million seabirds, representing dozens of different species. Among them is the rare Tristan albatross, with a wingspan reaching up to 3.5 meters, which has chosen these lonely cliffs as its only breeding ground. They travel millions of kilometers across the vast open ocean, yet somehow always find their way back to the exact place where they were born to build their nests. The very isolation that once made this place seem terrifying to humans has become the greatest shield protecting its natural world. And yet, this strictly protected paradise is hiding a brutal dark side: Norway rats. Accidentally brought to the island aboard whaling ships more than a century ago, have evolved into unusually large and aggressive predators. Under the cover of darkness, they have become a nightmare, attacking and devouring seabird chicks right in their nests. The silent battle for survival on Gough Island continues every single day, transforming this World Heritage Site into a symbol that is both magnificent and incredibly fragile in the heart of the ocean. If Gough Island is a paradise open to the natural world, then the next destination on our journey is a stone gateway locked tight by the hands of nature itself. This is Inaccessible Island, the unreachable island, one of the most pristine and challenging pieces of land on the planet. True to the name given to it by Dutch sailors in the 17th century, this island seems to reject almost every attempt by humans to set foot upon it. There are no harbors, no safe anchorages, and any boat attempting to approach must risk being smashed against the jagged cliffs by powerful waves. This extreme isolation has accidentally transformed Inaccessible Island into a perfect time capsule, preserving the world's smallest surviving flightless bird, the Inaccessible Island rail. These birds live freely across the island's flat plateau, knowing nothing of the fear of humans or predators from the mainland. Recognized by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site alongside Gough Island, Inaccessible Island stands as a powerful reminder from nature itself. Some places were simply born to be admired from a distance. After making our way through nature's harsh and breathtaking stone fortresses, our journey is finally soothed as we return to human life in one of the quietest corners of the main island. This is Sandy Point, a lush paradise, a beloved camping spot, and the one-of-a-kind orchard of the Tristan community. In complete contrast to the cold, windswept village of Edinburgh on the northwest coast, Sandy Point possesses a priceless gift from nature, a warm, sheltered microclimate. Protected by the slopes of the volcano, this is the only place on the isolated island where fruit trees like apples, pears, and plums can actually blossom and bear fruit. For the people of Tristan, Sandy Point is more than just a farm. It is the perfect escape. During long holidays and the Christmas season, families make their way here by foot or by boat to camp together, leaving their everyday worries behind and immersing themselves in the peaceful embrace of nature. The soft sands of Sandy Point are like a gentle brushstroke across the fierce landscape of the South Atlantic. And as we can see, even at the most remote and unforgiving edge of the world, people can still find a little corner of sweetness, a place to plant the seeds of life and share simple, happy moments with the ones they love. For now, we say goodbye to the sun-drenched orchards. Nestled right in the heart of the settlement, welcome to St. Mary's School, the beacon of knowledge. This is the only school on the island where the dreams of every child born at the edge of the world are nurtured. The school first opened its doors in 1975 with a modest 5 classrooms, a library, a computer room, an arts and science area, and a multi-purpose hall. It is so small that the entire student body can sometimes be no larger than a single classroom in a major city. Students follow a curriculum similar to the British education system, while many teachers and education specialists are recruited from overseas to work on temporary assignments. After the age of 16, students who wish to continue their education usually have to leave the island for the United Kingdom or South Africa, a major turning point for children who have grown up surrounded by the vast ocean, knowing nearly everyone on the island since the day they were born. St. Mary's School is where the young Tristan birds first spread their wings beyond the sheltering embrace of the ocean, only to return years later, many of them bringing new knowledge home to help nurture the land they love. In the vast expanse of the South Atlantic, Camogli Healthcare Center stands as the final line of defense, protecting the lives of the entire community on Tristan da Cunha. It is the only hospital in the archipelago and one of the most isolated medical facilities in the world. Fully upgraded in 2017 to meet the rigorous standards of the United Kingdom's National Health Service, or NHS, Camogli Healthcare Center handles everything from common colds and routine care for the elderly to life-threatening medical
Siberian larch cladding was selected for low maintenance.
Because of the island's extremely narrow gene pool, the center also carries a unique responsibility, researching and treating hereditary asthma and congenital conditions that occur at unusually high rates among the population. Since its modernization, the hospital has proudly welcomed the first babies to be born right on the island, without their mothers having to make the long journey across the ocean, bringing new hope for the future of generations to come. And yet, geographic isolation remains a daunting challenge for healthcare here. When a patient's condition becomes too serious for the center to handle, the line between life and death, once again, depends on the forces of nature. Patients must face a journey that can feel like a gamble with death itself, waiting for a ship, then enduring a week-long voyage across rough seas just to reach Cape Town for treatment. Just a few minutes' walk from the healthcare center, let's make our way to St. Mary's Church. The cathedral stands motionless at the foot of Queen Mary's Peak. The idea of building a church first emerged in the late 19th century, but the island's harsh conditions caused countless attempts to fail. It wasn't until 1923 that the church was finally completed. The Tristan craftsmen of old carved and shaped each block of dark gray volcanic stone by hand, building these sturdy walls from the very earth beneath their feet. Even more remarkable, the church's roof and ceiling were assembled from salvaged timber, wooden planks recovered from shipwrecks scattered across the distant waters. Every grain of wood, every stone, carries a story of survival. In the vast and lonely expanse of the South Atlantic, St. Mary's Church stands as the heart of every sacred milestone in life, from the first cries of newborns at baptism to the radiant smiles of couples exchanging vows, and finally, the tears shed as loved ones are laid to rest in the embrace of their motherland. Although the vast majority of islanders follow the Anglican faith, the spiritual life of Tristan da Cunha is not confined to a single place of worship. Not far from St. Mary's Church stands St. Joseph's Church, a small Catholic sanctuary filled with deep devotion. In 1983, the islanders came together to build a small chapel near Prince Philip Hall. But as the number of worshippers grew, the little chapel soon became too cramped. And so, St. Joseph's Church was built and officially opened in 1996, replacing the old chapel. The church is cared for and managed entirely by the island's Catholic community. Because the island is so isolated and has no resident priest, weekly masses are often led by long-serving local parishioners. The church also carries a deep connection to the island's history of migration, particularly through Italian sailors who survived shipwrecks in the 19th century. Despite their different denominations, religion has never been a source of division on Tristan da Cunha. The people of both churches come together to share their spaces, prepare for major celebrations, and hold hands in prayer for the safety and peace of their island in the face of natural disasters. St. Joseph's Church stands proudly as a symbol of a simple truth. Respect and unconditional love are the highest form of faith. Respect and unconditional love constitute the ultimate religion that ensures the flame of the island's civilization never dies out. From the narrow paths where the two churches meet, we find ourselves standing before Prince Philip Hall, the cultural center, the administrative brain, and the beating heart of the entire island. The building was named after Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, following several visits by the British royal family and their long-standing interest in this remote overseas territory. Inside this hall, the Tristan da Cunha Island Council, the highest governing body, elected directly by the island's own people, meets regularly to oversee every aspect of daily life. The political system here is as unique as the island's geography itself. No political parties, no noisy election campaigns, and no posters plastering the village streets. In a tiny society made up of 8 major family lines, where everyone has known each other's character since childhood, a seat on the council is earned through something money can never buy: honor and a lifetime of service to the community. From coordinating lobster fishing quotas and managing land allocation at the patches, to overseeing financial assistance from the British government, every decision is made through the highest possible level of consensus, always with the island's collective interests in mind. But Prince Philip Hall is more than just a center of administration. It is also the cultural heart of the island. Dances, Christmas parties, weddings, community birthdays, musical performances, fundraising fairs, indoor sports tournaments, and gatherings of the entire population all take place here. In a place where every ship must travel nearly 2,800 kilometers from Cape Town, and where the rest of the world can feel impossibly far away, Prince Philip Hall serves as the glue that holds the entire Tristan da Cunha community together. It truly is no exaggeration to call Prince Philip Hall the cultural and spiritual heart of the island. Inside Prince Philip Hall, Albatross Bar is the island's one and only pub and is considered one of the most isolated pubs in the world. At Albatross Bar, you won't find a long menu filled with extravagant cocktails. There are no booming sound systems or noisy television screens like you'd see in modern cities. The true charm of this pub comes from its simplicity and from the endless conversations that unfold within its walls. In a community with no movie theater, no shopping mall, and not even a second cafe, this is where the people of Tristan share the latest news, talk about the lobster season, keep up with sports scores, or simply come together to wind down after another day of work. When cruise ships arrive on the island, Albatross Bar also opens its doors to visitors, becoming one of the most popular stops that almost every traveler wants to experience. Interestingly, Albatross Bar once became the center of a collaboration with Bushy's Brewery on the Isle of Man to create a special beer called Tristan Island Brew, brewed using native berries from Tristan da Cunha. In 2016, the pub also established a cultural partnership with the Elder Tree Inn in England through a unique exchange event, showing that even thousands of miles from the mainland, this tiny community continues to maintain meaningful connections with the outside world. Today, Albatross Bar is more than just the only pub on Tristan da Cunha. It is a small flame that keeps the spirit of the entire community warm. Surrounding Tristan da Cunha is the South Atlantic Ocean, a vast and solemn expanse, a colossal embrace that both sustains and confines every human life at the edge of the world. To the people of Tristan, the South Atlantic is more than a geographical concept on a map. It is a living presence woven into every breath of their daily lives. The ocean is a generous mother, providing precious rock lobster at Calshot Harbor and seaweed that enriches the soil at the Patches. But at the same time, the ocean can be a cold and merciless tyrant. It sets the rules of survival, ready to sever every connection with the mainland for months at a time, with walls of waves as tall as buildings, turning medical emergencies at Camogli into deadly gambles. Here, people never try to conquer the ocean. They learn to respect it, to listen to its moods, and to depend on it to carry their community through generation after generation. Surrounded by thousands of kilometers of empty ocean with not a single human soul in sight, life on Tristan da Cunha is an eternal pact with the South Atlantic. The ocean may imprison their bodies in absolute isolation, but its vastness and relentless challenges have forged free and resilient spirits and deepened the love for home shared by a community that has never bowed to the storms of the open sea. The resilience of the people of Tristan becomes even more remarkable when you realize that this island lies directly along the route of one of the most terrifying nightmares in maritime history. Welcome to the Roaring Forties, the legendary latitudes of the Howling Forties, where relentless gales reign supreme and some of the strongest winds in the southern hemisphere hold sway. Stretching roughly between 37 and 40 degrees south, these waters are completely free of any major landmass or geographic barrier capable of blocking the powerful air currents that constantly sweep from west to east. The winds of the Roaring Forties never seem to tire. At times, they reach speeds of 60 to 100 kilometers per hour and can become even more violent during storms, generating waves more than 10 meters high. They race across thousands of kilometers of open ocean, gathering immense energy before unleashing their fury upon Tristan da Cunha again and again. Yet, despite its harshness, the Roaring Forties also bring vital benefits. Powerful winds combine with cold ocean currents to create nutrient-rich upwelling, transforming these waters into an ideal habitat for marine life. This abundance of natural resources has helped the tiny island community sustain itself in the middle of the ocean for more than 2 centuries. Today, the Roaring Forties remain a symbol of the South Atlantic's immense power and unpredictability. To sailors, they are among the most formidable stretches of ocean on Earth. But to the people of Tristan da Cunha, they are simply an inseparable part of life. Let's continue our journey, heading more than 1,500 miles north, the only key that allows Tristan da Cunha to reach the modern world. This is St. Helena, a strategic transit island and the highest administrative center for this entire British overseas territory. Famous throughout history as the final place of exile for Emperor Napoleon, St. Helena now serves as the elder sibling carrying the fate of its more isolated island neighbors. Every major political decision, medical and educational aid budget, and foreign policy directive from London must pass through the administrative headquarters here before reaching Tristan da Cunha. Most importantly, since St. Helena's airport opened, the island has become a vital lifeline and transit hub. Students graduating from St. Mary's School and critically ill patients from Camogli Healthcare Center must first undertake a long journey across the ocean to reach St. Helena before connecting to flights that take them to the mainland and into the modern world. Isolated yet strategically positioned as a vital link in the heart of the Atlantic, St. Helena is an irreplaceable bridge. This fortress island stands as both a steadfast administrative anchor and a quiet transit hub, ensuring that the flame of life on Tristan da Cunha, the most remote inhabited island on Earth, can never be completely cut off from the outside world. Every journey, no matter how far it travels, must eventually find its way back to a real shore. For the people of Tristan da Cunha, if St. Helena is their administrative and bureaucratic lifeline, then this corner of the African coast is truly their second home port. Welcome to Cape Town, the bustling port city of South Africa, and the only gateway through which people can reach the most remote inhabited island on Earth by sea. In a world where people have grown accustomed to traveling by air in just a matter of hours, the voyage from Cape Town to Tristan da Cunha feels like a slow-motion journey back in time. With no runway on the main island, the only way to supply or visit Tristan is to board one of the vessels that depart from here. Each year, only around 8 or 9 ships dare to cross the open ocean from this harbor, heading southwest into the vast Atlantic. For the people of Tristan, Cape Town is where they go for critical medical treatment at major hospitals, where they shop for everything from televisions to motorcycles, and where they leave behind a piece of their hearts as they wait for weeks just to catch a ship battling the winds on its journey home. As the ship's deck pulls away from the shores of Cape Town, the boundaries of the modern world officially close behind. Ahead lies nothing but towering waves, the howling winds of the roaring 40s, and a journey lasting 6 long days and nights across the open ocean. Cape Town stands as both the beginning of the journey and the mainland's final farewell, a last embrace before sending these resilient hearts back toward the magnificent isolation of Tristan da Cunha. Crossing thousands of miles of open ocean to the north, we arrive in Britain, the sovereign nation of Tristan da Cunha, and the country where the entire population was once evacuated in 1961 to escape the fury of the earth beneath their feet. In October 1961, after a series of relentless earthquakes, the volcano on the main island, seemingly dormant for generations, suddenly awakened. Standing on the brink of disaster, all 260 residents were forced to leave their homes and possessions behind and board evacuation ships bound for distant Britain. Upon arriving in the United Kingdom, most of the islanders were temporarily housed at Pendle Camp in the village of Calshot, Hampshire, before later being relocated to housing near Southampton. For people accustomed to a quiet life in the middle of the ocean, 1960s Britain was an entirely different world. Crowded streets, endless traffic, industrial factories, supermarkets, and the relentless pace of modern life. The sudden transformation was difficult for many to adapt to, even though the British government provided housing, employment, education, and healthcare throughout their stay. Indeed, the dazzling neon lights of London and the prosperity of Britain could never erase their deep longing for their remote, untouched volcanic island in the South Atlantic. Despite warnings and the harsh realities awaiting them back home, in a 1962 referendum, the overwhelming majority made a decision that astonished the world. They chose to leave modern Britain behind and return home, rebuilding their volcanic island from the ashes. This historic bond with Britain has not only made Tristan da Cunha part of the British overseas territories to this day, but also stands as perhaps the strongest proof of all, that for the people of Tristan, no modern paradise could ever replace the freedom and deep-rooted love they hold for their lonely homeland in the middle of the endless ocean. Before the entire population of Tristan da Cunha was evacuated to the United Kingdom in 1961, their first stop was Nightingale Island, a small, untouched island lying just 30 to 40 kilometers southwest of Tristan, As Queen Mary's Peak erupted and rivers of lava crept dangerously close to the settlement, Nightingale became an emergency refuge, marking the first chapter of the largest evacuation in the island's history. Nightingale Island is the largest of the Nightingale Islands, alongside Middle Island and Stoltenhof Island. Covering just around 4 square kilometers, the island has almost no large trees and very limited freshwater resources, yet it is home to an extraordinarily rich ecosystem. Millions of seabirds breed here, including albatrosses, terns, and northern rockhopper penguins. As a result, the entire archipelago is now part of the Tristan da Cunha Marine Protection Zone, one of the largest marine protected areas in the Atlantic. On October 10, 1961, after cracks appeared near Edinburgh of the Seven Seas and lava threatened the settlement, the entire population was evacuated aboard fishing boats and small launches. On this uninhabited island, surrounded by the bitter cold of the roaring 40s and the hardships of displacement, they endured sleepless nights together, keeping one another warm as they stared toward their homeland, burning in the distance. It was here, on this temporary island refuge, that the historic vessel TJS Tijisadane arrived to collect them, beginning the long voyage toward South Africa and onward to Britain. Though their stay was brief, Nightingale Island became an inseparable part of the collective memory of the people of Tristan da Cunha, a symbol of the passage between loss and hope during the most defining chapter in the community's history. After a 1,000-mile journey across the ocean's towering walls of waves, we finally return to the launching point of the modern world. But the echoes of Tristan da Cunha will remain forever, as one of the most extraordinary stories ever told about the resilience of the human spirit. And with that, our journey to Tristan da Cunha comes to an end. Leave a comment below and share your thoughts and feelings with us. Thank you for joining me on this legendary voyage. Goodbye, and I'll see you in the next video.